with respect to Syria, we do have differing perspectives on the problem, but we share an interest in reducing the violence, securing chemical weapons, and ensuring that they're neither used nor are they subject to proliferation.
And of course our opinions do not coincide, but all of us have the intention to stop the violence in Syria, to stop the growth of victims, and to solve the situation peacefully, including by bringing the parties to the negotiations table in Geneva. We agreed to push the parties to the negotiations table.
Obviously the voice of a translator there. President Putin meeting with President Obama, bilateral meeting on the side of the G8 summit. Two sides funding and funneling equipment to two different sides in the Syrian civil war. This is a new Pew poll is out about reaction to the U.S. and its allies sending arms to the rebels in Syria. And there you see the steady decline since March of 2012, favoring that support, and opposition going up. With that, let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Well, that meeting, Steve, we don't know too much behind closed doors, but just being on two sides of that same civil war, you could imagine it might be frosty.
No question about it. I think the body language suggested that they didn't reach many accommodations beyond agreeing that they wanted to push towards some kind of negotiated settlement. I think the problem here is pretty fundamental. The Russians have been supplying the Syrian regime, are friendly with the Syrian regime going back years, and the United States has made noises about supporting the opposition, has offered some sort of soft support for the opposition, and now seems inclined to step up that support. Well, you can push these sides to the negotiating table, but as long as you're funding the opposite sides, you're not going to have much of a breakthrough in these kinds of negotiations.
Mara, this weekend on the Sunday shows, you had two different views, critics of the administration, and the administration obviously defending itself. Take a listen to one such exchange.
It seems to me they have a great media strategy. They don't have a great Syrian strategy. And I don't believe any of our members, and we had both Republicans and Democrats on the committee, express concern about where they think we are today and where we think the administration wants to go.
We have to be very discerning about what's in our interest and what the outcome is best for us, and the prices that we're willing to pay to get to that place. We've rushed a war in this region in the past. We're not going to do it here.
Okay, what about that and the thought that small arms are not going to get it done?
Well, I don't think small arms are going to get it done. I mean, small arms are a way for the president to say, well, I didn't just stay out of it while the Syrian regime mowed down its people. You have his European allies, who he's meeting with this week, wanting to do something there. And, you know, that poll you showed earlier, I mean, the opposition has just gone steadily up. It started out at 63% in March, now it's up to 70%. So it's clear the public doesn't want to get involved. But the question is, if Dennis McDonough says you have to determine the cost that you have to pay to get where you want to get to, the cost just might be higher than the president is willing to pay right now. He wants the situation stabilized to the point where Assad sees that he has to step down. Well, we're going in the opposite direction right now.
Charles.
It wasn't just a frosty meeting, it was a useless meeting. Putin is serious about what he's doing. He has a strategic idea that he wants to restore Russian influence in the region. They've been around for about 500 years in the region. They got kicked out by Kissinger in the early 70s when the Arabs turned against him and became the protectorate of the United States. This is a unique opportunity where the Americans have abdicated and where you have a president who announces at the very, after the tide of war is turned, that he's going to do something that is ultimately marginal. It's not going to have an effect on the outcome. He has this new red line policy announced by the deputy national security advisor. Forget about the national security advisor. And as we just heard, the chief of staff of the president announces that we're only going to pay something of a price. This is a declaration of unseriousness. It's exactly the same as when Obama announced the tripling of troops in Afghanistan and in the next sentence announced that we're leaving. If you're either serious about intervention or you aren't, and I'm against any intervention where you're not serious, because what he's doing now is risking getting caught in this. We're establishing essentially a base in Jordan, and who knows what's going to happen in Jordan, or you're not. And if you're not, stay out of it.
So you're saying don't send the small arms, just stay out completely.
The alternative is, if you want to change the course of the war, you make a speech to the American people to reverse what you see in the Pew poll. Obama has never spoken about Syria. It's not surprising that everybody is against it. You make a speech, you explain it, and you do something serious. You bomb the airfields. You don't have to establish you don't have to knock out all the aircraft equipment as we did in Libya. But if you prevent the aircraft from getting into the air by bombing the airfields, you have done something serious. You flood them with heavy weapons, not just light weapons, or you do nothing. But this, I think, is worse than nothing.
And as Chairman Rogers mentioned, it's not just Republicans. Democrats are increasingly speaking out about this. Take a listen to Senator Menendez.
And the reality is we need to tip the scales, not simply to nudge them. And the president's moving in the right direction. If Assad continues to have unlimited air power and artillery, that's a hard battle to win against, simple arms.
So even though the polls are going the other way in public support, you have prominent Republicans and Democrats saying either you're all in or you're all out.
Yeah, well, I agree with Charles that you can't be half in. I mean, then that is the problem. I think the signals that we got from the administration over the weekend, to say nothing of the ones that we got for 18 months preceding this, have been that they don't have much of an interest in doing this. And that's a real problem. I mean, part of what we're trying to do by announcing that we're likely to get involved in some way or another is to send a message to the people fighting on the ground, to the people in the international community, that we're willing to do something, that we will intervene decisively to determine the outcome or at least substantially shape it. If you're not willing to do that, it's hard to make an argument for intervention, even though I think at the end there are chemical weapons that have to be accounted for. Somebody's going to get them. If we're not there, if we've done nothing, it's not going to be us, and we're not going to determine who does.
But Mara, even supporters of the administration say they look at this potentially and you get the downsides, but you don't potentially get the upsides.
There are a tremendous number of downsides. There are no real good guys here. This is kind of like a more violent version of the Arab Spring protests. The guys who are fighting against Assad and want to replace him might be no better. But at least you wouldn't be allowing Iran to cement its power throughout the region. That's one geostrategic goal you might have. And the rest of the Arab world is pretty freaked out. I mean, they think Syria could break up. Iran is the winner right now. And that might be a reason to do it. But look, public opinion is not going to be changed. President Obama, Charles, can go out and give a speech, and the public is still going to be against intervening in this conflict. Sometimes you have to do something against public opinion polls. I don't think that he will do that,
But it's not going to be 80%. The same way that it went to practically zero in Afghanistan. If the president is sending signals as obviously as he did over the weekend, I am not interested, I'm doing this grudgingly, I'm not sure I even want to do this, it will have no effect, it will not move American public opinion, and it will demoralize the rebels rather than to give them a sense that America is behind them, which would be the whole point of this.